Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Will Herman, author of The Startup Playbook. Will, one of the things I know you say is that before jumping into a startup, you urge people to vet their vision. What does that mean?
So this is what I was referring to when we talk about execution is more important than the idea. So many people get an idea and then they say, okay, that's it. That's what I need. I've got my idea. Now let's go start a company. Let's go sell a product. Let's go develop a service. We think there are about 9 fundamental tests that need to happen, and once you come up with your idea, and they are very simple tests, and they are processes behind each one of them, and so we look at it. We call it the vetting loop. And you go through the loop. As you go around the loop, there's a test. There's essentially a question you have to answer. And once you can answer it, you move on to the next stage in the loop. And often what happens is at some point during the loop, early on in the development of a company, the team realizes that, that idea, it wasn't really sufficient. Let's modify the idea and start the loop again. And by doing that, they iterate through this vetting loop, answering the questions that need to be answered to get a great product, get a great service out to market. And then when they finally exit the loop, they're ready to go. It's a process we call starting slow to move fast. The business, so many startup business books out there now promote the idea of move fast, just quick, skip steps, just jump ahead, move ahead. We don't think that's right. We actually think going fast is a very good idea once you're engaged with the customer and once you're selling your product or service. That's when it's important to move fast. But at the beginning, people should go through this vetting loop, making sure they've got all of their T's crossed and their I's dotted. When they come out of the loop, then they're ready to move as fast as they possibly can to success.
Now, just that alone, and I said this in the first part of the show, I think this is so important to people because if you don't do this, you're probably going to get caught somewhere in that loop. And if you don't get hold of the Startup Playbook by our guest, Will Herman, this can cost you either, at best, hundreds of dollars, more likely thousands, if not tens of thousands, or maybe hundreds of thousands, because after you've spent 3, 4, 5 months and you see something failing, it's like, gee, if I would have done that 3 months ago, I bet I'd be okay today. So you make a lot of sense, and I'm sure by going through this vetting loop, it's probably a little bit of work at first, but it saves us a great deal of problems later on.
That's exactly right. It is work, and there is a lot of interaction with potential customers up front. But it, as you said, it not only saves you from running into problems later, it allows you to accelerate later. And by the way, because you're moving slowly and strongly through this beginning vetting period of your idea, you're not consuming as much money either. So it turns out it's cheaper to bring your product to market doing what we prescribe than it is the normal way of doing things insanely fast.
Now, there's some magic business words. Saves money. We love that. Well, we picture when we say the word startup, somebody who's on a TV movie and they're just really smart and they're giving orders, let's do this and start this new app and start this computer program and do this. Is it important to sit there, or do you stress the idea of sitting there and setting some goals with the founders, or is that just old-fashioned, that's not done anymore?
Well, I mean, I think goal setting, it's really important to measure everything that you do. And goal setting is really just a form of imposing measurement. So I think it is important to set goals. Yeah, and essentially, to go back to the vetting loop that you brought up before, each one of those is a goal. Okay, first step, who are your customers? Define who your customers are. Until you know who your customers are, you don't know how to go to the next step, which is what is your value proposition? And then to the next step, how do you build your team and so forth? And it sets not so much a timeline, but certainly a set of goals that need to be achieved and sub-goals that need to be achieved to ultimately get to delivering a product or service.
And I'm just thinking, just by some of the terms you're using, what is your value proposition? Somewhere along the way, you're going to be asked that by an investor, someone who's going to join the team or be part of it. And if you don't know the lingo of your business, if you're not familiar with these terms, and if you don't have an answer, I certainly wouldn't want to invest 12 or 18 months of my life, or maybe 2 or 3 years, with a startup that may go no place just because they didn't do the root work at the beginning. So if nothing else, this kind of, by going through the startup playbook, you get to know the terms that's going to be used, what the field is going to look like, what the players are going to expect. Will, once again, would like to let our audience know that our guest today is Will Herman. His book is The Startup Playbook. You may have heard me mention that a few times. Will, tell us where we can get it in the website.
The website is startup-playbook.com, and you can download a free chapter on the website if you'd like to check it out or get more information on the website. And, of course, there's a link to Amazon where you can pick up the Kindle or hardcover version. Now,
Will, you bluntly say in the book you're more likely to make money working for someone else. So why should we work this hard, maybe 9 months, 12 months, make very little money? I think I read somewhere that something like 75% of the people in a startup make less than $50,000 a year, at least initially. Why should we do all this work?
That's an excellent question. It's for a certain type of people, a certain type of person. You can make more money working for someone else. In fact, given the failure rates of startup, over time you're more likely to make money that way. But if you're the kind of person who needs to or wants to get credit for what they're doing, wants to be responsible for their moves forward, wants to have visibility into the results of their efforts, who wants to build teams and watch metrics and success and failure happen. Certainly a startup gives you all those things and a big company doesn't. You just can't have the same exposure level, unless, of course, you're the CEO of the big company, that you have in a startup. And for people who want that and understand that it's not really a way to make money for most people, although the Hollywood promise is certainly that you'll be a billionaire, that's very, very rare.
Now, something else that surprised me, you say one of the first things we should address is our exit strategy. I always think of exit at the end or when I'm running out of the theater or some building. Why is that important to address early on?
So again, we're talking about not all small businesses here. This is specifically for startups, and startups, by our definition, require capital from the outside. Require investment capital. You can only get investment capital if you plan to have an exit of your business, and that means either an IPO or a sale of the company. And so as you go look for money, you need to be able to tell investors, this is what our plan is, and this is how long we think it'll take to get there. So the part of the initial plan of a company is going to be how it's going to grow, when it's going to reach certain financial milestones, and when that will either justify an initial public offering, an IPO, or an acquisition by a competitor or someone in an adjacent market.
And I guess if we don't do that early on, you made me think of this. We have 3 or 4 or 5 founders or whatever number. Somebody's going to say, well, I think we should sell for $10 million. And someone else is going to say, let's hold out for $1 billion. And the third person might say, I just enjoy doing this. I'm making money. I'm having fun. And people think I'm real brilliant. Let me keep doing it. So I guess that could cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's part of yes. That's also exactly right. That's part of how when you're building your founding team, how you need to communicate, and you need to make sure that your goals are the same. Not even big long-term goals like that, because some of those will change over time. But even short-term goals. I want us to work 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. And another person might say, no, I'm really a 9-to-5 kind of person. And, I'm not willing to put that extra time in. I've got kids at home. I got soccer games. I got baseball to coach. And so you need to be able to sit down with your team and decide what are the important things and how are you going to make sure that you're all working, going the same direction with the same level of effort, and how you're compensating each other and what you'll own from what each of you will own in the company. A lot of complex, difficult discussions have to happen early on with the team.
What would you say is the biggest factor that people overlook when they're setting up their startup?
In the team, the division of equity in the team. It's done shockingly haphazardly, and it is one of the biggest bones of contention that breaks up small startups. It's ownership that are funded. There are plenty of things that can break up a startup before it's funded, but post funding, that the ownership percentage gets to be a huge deal.
Division of equity, is that a nice way of saying how much I'm going to get paid?
How much I'm going to own of the company, separately how much you're going to get paid in compensation also needs to be decided, but that's easier to adjust over time. Ownership of the company, the amount of stock you have in the company, the percentage of the company that you own, that's harder to change over time. People aren't willing to give up on what they already have. So a lot of founders will tell you, of failed companies will tell you, well, yeah, I was working 7 days a week, and I had the same percentage ownership as my co-founder, who was only working 4 days a week, and that was ultimately why things broke.
Well, once again, we want our audience to know the time goes much too quickly when we're having fun, but it's the Startup Playbook by our guest, Will Herman, and the website, Will?
Startup-playbook.com.
Will, thanks so much for being with us. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we'll continue our journey to success.